Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Stand by. Well, no stand by. You might get some audio, but you don't see me. Boy, oh boy. Details, details, details. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. What I call it, the name of it from one day to the next, who knows? But the one constant is me. And the one, because it is me, the other constant is that you're either going to like what you hear or see, or you're not, okay? But if you're not going to stay around long anyway. So there you go. I'm here for all of you. I'm here for all of me because we are connected. We are one. Some of us know it, and some of us don't. Okay. So, and one of my points and purposes for here is since I have embraced this idea that we are one and we are one thing, and in fact, we are able to do things that generally we think we aren't able to do. We've been, and I say we think we're not able to do, it's not because we don't believe in ourselves. I think it's because we've been taught not to believe in ourselves. There's a very, very big distinction with regard to that. And if you don't believe in yourself, you won't pursue things that your heart wants to pursue, that you want to pursue. And, you'll listen to some expert tell you that's not a good idea. Well, I'm going to consider myself expert enough at the game of life to say certain things that I see for myself. I'm not believing. I know what I'm talking about. If I'm talking about it, and if I know, I'll say it. But I also tell you now, I know that I don't know everything that there is to know. No one does. And a lot of people just act like they know everything, and they don't. But they want you to follow their advice as though there's no other advice to be followed. So we have some habits based on my journeys through this, wow, this place, this thing called life, this school of life. I've got my University of Earth shirt on, and I came up with this idea for this. This is a super idea, maybe 10, 15 years ago. And I have not been the merchandiser because maybe I should be touting my shirts, and stuff and making an income from it. I have some and I can make more. But well, since I brought it up because from before the first breath, after the last, as far as this form is concerned, when we step into and onto this platform, this realm, this reality this density called Earth, we are in school. We got stuff not only to learn, but to teach. Not only to teach, but to learn. We have things to discover. No, not totally about all of the universe, but about the universe, the one that's within us, the one that it is who we are. And so our society, our social structure for many, many generations and centuries and eras have explored the outer and oftentimes lost touch with the inner. Not only that, it is causative in nature and connected, because everything that you see has its beginnings in an area and a realm that you don't see. And that area and realm that you don't see is not out there someplace, but yes, it is in here. It is in here. It is in places that are unseen. A lot of people don't think of as a fact that we have a field like a cloud around us. We understand and we embrace the idea of a cloud. I mean, clouds. This is part of our technology now. If it's technical and they say it's a cloud, okay, we're quick to believe it. If it's living, and I speak of a cloud that you can't see, but it's there, it surrounds you, and in fact, The you who you are, the who you that you think you are, the you or the I that I think I am, for that matter, is all inside enclosed by this cloud. But this cloud is also a conduit of ideas, a converter of ideas and energies into the form that we are, of information as well. If I want to do these type of things, I want to move this. There's some very, very fast twitch things happening in the cloud, in the network, the internet of me, so to speak. And we all have one. And we all have one that interacts and intersects with everyone else and everything else. We don't act from a knowledge of this information, of this fact. And I'm saying these things because I'm going to say more things along these lines, which are not standard ways of thinking today, and they ought to be. And the problem is the lack of the standardization upon an inner constitution. It's an unseen constitution. It's not one that's written down on paper someplace and preserved somewhere. It's one that's written down right here, okay, on your heart center. It's a multidimensional place that basically interacts with the universal laws of, you know, of reality, so to speak. I shouldn't say laws, maybe just one. There's one law that applies to everyone. And it's one that's equal, it's egalitarian, it applies with equal measure and equal significance to everyone. You and I may not see it in things that we are observing from our perspectives, but the laws are applying and will apply in some when, in somewhere, so to speak. I was going to do it some other time, but when and where works just fine. So, what is the reason for my doing this? And I'm going to see, let me see, I'm going to make some adjustments here. I started this dialogue. I'm looking for my chat box. Okay, there it is there. I started this dialogue a week ago. And I did this only on Facebook, although I wanted to do it on both YouTube and Facebook simultaneously. And so here we are now. Okay, so I've achieved that, I do believe. Now, what's the purpose of it? It's called Onescious Wealth Movement. And what it is basically is my efforts to share a vision that you and others will see and embrace, so that not just I create a new form, a new way of generating income that I can use, that we can use from now on, from here on, but also it's done in a way that can be replicated and done by anyone. It doesn't matter how much they have or more so don't have relative to being able to participate, because the tools that you are using are tools of your spirit, the tools of your consciousness, the tools of your being, which are oftentimes, especially the best parts of them, are not rewarded. They tend to be detoured too often, or we tend to be detoured too often by priorities of people who, and ourselves, okay, if we've been so convinced, where we don't take or use or exercise these more, I was going to say cerebral, but I would say more spiritual. And if there's such thing as an oxymoron where you're using two words that don't apply, there's probably an opposite to that where you're using two words that do apply. And in this case, when you say spiritual, spiritual applies to anything and everything that you do, whether it's you think it's good or bad, whether you like it or you think it's reprehensible that someone else is doing it, it's all spiritual. There is nothing that is not spiritual. In the same way that there's nothing that is not conscious and consciousness. All, when I talked about that cloud a while ago, another word to describe that cloud relative to your experience and the things that happen to you or things that you happen to, they are all still acts of spirit. There's nothing that isn't an act of spirit. Now, having said that, you won't get total agreement with people because we're thinking of ourselves as something other than spirit. We tend to think of ourselves as a physical form, and therefore that the body is who and what we are, when in fact it is not. It is a representative, not a representative, it is a proxy, if you will, which could be considered a representative of your energies, of your intelligence, of your consciousness while you're here, or not while you're here, here. This place where you and I consider to be our home, so to speak, as Earth, or in some cases our place of conception. Is, the idea is that we are conceived. When we're conceived, life begins, and when our form is done, or we're done with our form, and we withdraw our energies. I'm describing what is actually happening versus what appears. But when that activity occurs, we are presumed to have become a word called dead. We presume that a word called death now applies, and that now because we have quote unquote, when I say that I mean this, quote unquote died, we are first of all, some people, some academics wonder, and I'll say academics because you think of yourself as academic. I have thought of myself as an academic. No, I guess I haven't. I've never really thought of myself as an academic. But the question is raised relative to whether you exist after it. When they say you only live once, well, there's a truth to that and there's a non-truth to that. Yes, you only live once because you always live. You are a being that has no beginning and no end. So yes, there's only one life. However, I'm doing this as a sine wave, so to speak. You've got times of visibility and invisibility. You have times of activity and apparent inactivity at a given density of experience. So Earth is a density of experience, and the one wherein this body is visible and it motates is at a certain density. When we are done with it, whether we break it, someone else breaks it, it doesn't really matter, where it cannot hold your energy anymore, and therefore you leave, so to speak. You leave because it can't function anymore. Does it mean you leave? Not necessarily, especially if you're not done here, or especially if you're of a mind or a consciousness that only sees reality and only sees existence only in the context of a physical form. And if you leave this body, so to speak, or if there's an abrupt dissociation from this body, a person, if they don't know of themselves well enough and they don't know their own nature well enough, well, they will just continue to be, although no one who is also functioning has a functioning form, and yet not have an open enough mind to see beyond it. Well, they won't be able to perceive you, and you won't be able to perceive them. There are certain things that we as a consciousness, as a conscious spirit, ought to be learning about ourselves, which will work in our benefit and to our benefit in realms beyond this one, because other realms do exist. And we got plenty of literature about other realms, some that you like the idea of and some that you don't. But ultimately, we're creating realms right here on Earth, some of which we like and some of which we don't. And oftentimes, the people who are creating the ones that a lot of folks don't like don't realize that they have the ability to change all of that. Not only that, it won't change unless they change. So one of the things that so many people have in common, and I take my time. I'm talking 15 minutes before I probably get to a point that, uh, well, I think there's certain people are going to be interested in everything I say, and but this is for everyone. One of the things that has persisted for so many generations, and particularly in mine, the one that I came up with, I'm considered. Gosh, I got a lot of bright light outside. Boom. Well, I'm not going to worry about it. See there, I'm multitasking. One of the things that we have seen over my lifetime, in fact, is a carryover of things that were passed on to us, and we continue to pass on, and that was uh, a reticence to explore oneself and understand the nature of ourselves, and also I'm going to say an enthusiasm for that which is technological. That was cool. Technology was cool. Nature was not. It's really interesting. You don't understand or appreciate the programming that is done in our minds. I didn't come into this world with this idea in my mind. This is part of the programming that is done through. We start thinking about education, but it's not just education, it's literally everything. It's medical practices that actually dumb people down without their knowing it. And how and why? Why would you say such a thing? Well, the simple fact of the matter is that these medical practices, which don't need to be named, these medical practices change the natural balance of the chemistry. There's a certain chemistry, there are certain substances that in the waters of a mother's womb that they are concocted in such a way by the intelligence of the form of what's built into the form, because life is in our form. People say that there are more cells, more bacteria and stuff like that that's in our bodies than there are cells. Okay, there's in other words, these are aliens that are in our bodies, and there are more of them than there are human cells. And some people would actually take some umbrage to that and some exception. But the fact of the matter is, the intelligence that are in those microbial life forms that are in our cells have the knowledge, have the ability to do the formulations that are necessary to allow a human body to form from what appears to be nothingness. They create ideal conditions not only for a human body to form and grow and why do I want to say gesticulate? I mean gestate. Okay, is what I want to happen. A gestation period. So over 9 months' time, in that mother's womb, after insemination, a catalyst is formed, happens, and the conditions in that womb are such to one create the form, and also allow that form to be, you could say, entered by the consciousness, by the being. And the being is who you are and what you are. That form is literally able to change over the course of your lifetime, of my lifetime, and do your bidding, my bidding, while we are here. Its purpose is to do that. And we, as a society who thinks of itself as intelligent, are not sensitive or have not been sensitive or aware enough to appreciate this amazing process. So the elements, because there's only one periodic table of elements, there are energies. There are certain energies that are not measurable by our instruments in this particular realm. but they are yet necessary also for life to flourish, for your life to flourish, for my life to flourish while I'm here. The life of me and the life of you. And the point basically is this, that when they inject those other concoctions into this ecosystem, all of that sacred chemistry, all of that alchemy is what? It's discombobulated. It is altered. And all of that potential that could be this is now shrunk down some. It's shrunk down some. Okay? So when I say it's, people are dumbed down, they're dimmed down. They don't know it. And you know something? The cool thing about it is that the intelligence that's in this system can also mitigate that stuff. And and I think the people who actually started this, most people are just carrying on what someone told them to do beforehand in order so they'd get a paycheck. That's kind of why and how this perpetuates without so much thought. People are doing what they're told to do in order to get a paycheck. And so, and paychecks may become obsolete, okay, at some point in time. This is the way things have been done for quite some time. And the amounts that people have received for so long have often been less than they needed, less than they thought they were worth, but they took it anyway. If you take on a task that you think is beneath what you think you are actually worth, or what you are actually worth, but you take it on anyway, then there's a happiness index that goes down. All right, there's an attitude index from a beneficial standpoint that can go down. I'm not saying it will, because you still have the ability. Some people may take it as a challenge and they're going to work even harder. Some people just sit back, and because it's thankless and people don't respect them and everything else, maybe it's because you don't respect the people. Okay? Maybe it's because you don't respect yourself. Because if you respected yourself, you might have said no to that. You see? So these are the things that we are kind of grappling with. These are matters of spirit. And spirit determines our consciousness, our spiritual state and status determines what we will accept and not accept during the course of our lives. Now, the thing about it, the good news is this. Once you become aware of these things and you start feeling differently, where you start seeing reasons to be, I'm going to say, respectful, you see reasons to simply treat others better or treat yourself better. It typically begins with treating yourself better. Decide that you will treat yourself better. And then you treat others in that same way. But you got to begin. I call it the platinum rule because we're not taught this. We're taught, and I got graphics for all these things. I'm working this stuff out to where I will have graphics, and maybe it'll be more polished. Maybe it'll never be polished. I don't know. If your heart's open, you're getting everything I'm saying and actually more. Things you're getting more that I haven't said. And you're comprehending it, you're grokking it. So the point basically that I'm saying is this: we matter more than we practice the knowing of. And we need to practice the knowing of our matterness, that we do matter, and to the point of caring about it. And I talked about a golden rule, and I talked about a platinum rule, which I'm introducing. The golden rule, we know: do unto others as you have others to do unto you. And that should say, probably say it all, right? But no, there's another. There's yin and there's yang. I've come up with a yang for that yin. And the yang is basically this: treat yourself the way you want others to treat you. Treat yourself the way you want others to treat you. When you do that, you now you now confirm and reaffirm the standards of treatment, the standards that you will accept and not accept. Treat yourself the way you want others to treat you. When you start, but see, when you do that, you start looking at the other part of this because you'll start saying things or you'll start thinking things and you start wondering, do I want others to think this way about me? Uh, you can't control how they think, how anyone thinks. But I will tell you this, we all have experiences as a function of resonance, of likes attracting likes. We think that opposites attract. No, opposites don't. Likeness is what brings people and experiences together. And so if we want something to occur, we must treat ourselves in in harmony. It's not where you got to beat yourself and you got to push yourself. Gosh, if you need to push yourself, your heart must not be in what you're doing, or your kindness must not be in what you're doing, because there's no need to belittle yourself. There are so many things, and of course, if you start thinking of yourself as better than someone else, or someone else is better than you see, this is what those dynamics tend to draw people into, the idea of isolation and distinctiveness, and I'll say comparativism. All right, you're comparing yourself with something else, when in actuality there's nothing else. It's just life, and I am life, you are life, and we have the same source, and therefore there's one law of the universe, and it's the laws for life. We start talking about. You look at your fiat system, or not the fiat system, but our um, the corporate identity type business that tends to pervade this society. And what is it based on? It's based on a corporate fiction. It's based on creating an informational proxy of you that is considered to be lost at sea, to be dead, okay, not present. So they create this proxy. They give them names from the birth certificate, and they give those capital names. They put a number to it, and it becomes a commodity. This is all part of the old school. This is part of what's been happening for quite some time. And so all of these things, none of these methods are being examined from where I sit. And because they're not being examined at least enough. Now, obviously, they're being examined some, because I wouldn't know about it if I hadn't looked around for it and had some confirmation myself. When you find out that this is going on, you don't just believe it right away. Maybe some people do, depending on who told them. But you vet it. You take some time to examine it. And so what I'm going to be suggesting, and what I am suggesting, is that you vet the things that I say. I'm going to invite you to do something. But what I say and what I'm presenting here are some of the reasons to be doing these things. And we can talk about all of them, because in fact they ought to be exercised. They should be examined, so that one is that what needs to be changed, but you can't know what needs to be changed unless you can discern it from something else, where you can see what's beneficial from what's not. And so this conversation, this series, started because I wanted to introduce you to a way of earning and creating a new income, and creating it in a different way. One that would allow you to do a little bit of activity, a little bit of energy, and I'm saying you, and I mean that sincerely. It doesn't matter who's listening to this. Anyone can do this. Everyone can do this. And the beauty of it, in fact, one reason I do this, and I am doing this, is because anyone can do this. Everyone can do this. Now, let's talk about the caveat. In the old way of doing things, especially relative to value and stuff, we just do the best we can. We duke it out with each other and kind of determine What's the lowest amount that I can get this for, etc., or the highest amount that I can get this for, and how long does it take me to find someone who's willing to accept my low or willing to buy at my high amount, and that's kind of the process. But it's part of what's called a zero sum game system. People are exchanging their value, converting what they think is valuable into money, and then making their exchanges, which they then change that back into stuff. Could be a house, could be a car, it could be utilities, doesn't, whatever it is. Now, there are certain conventions that are associated with making those amounts, and we have tend to just keep doing those conventions, and we have not. Well, first of all, we haven't thought of anything different, and the truth is there hasn't been anything different enough to allow us to get to something really better. And so the crypto space from 2009, 2010, when Bitcoin came on and demonstrated that it was and is a practical way to hold and store value. But what is the value? Who asks what value is? Value is whatever you say it is, because you are the true value. You are the creators of value. You are the consumers. You are the givers of value. You are the receivers of value. We are always that. And you know something? Because we know so little about ourselves, we tend not to value ourselves. We tend to think the stuff that we get is evidence of our value that can be, you can say, quantified, so to speak. But that's not the point. You are the creator of value. However, you need to see yourself not only as the creator of value, but as valuable. I'm going to tell you now, someone else who has created an entire industry on stocks and exchanges of this, that, and the other, including human capital, they see you as valuable. They are profiting from it too. But most people on this planet are not. So it behooves each to create their own, that is their own, that they can use for themselves. And the best way to make that happen is if they use a method that, first of all, allows anyone to participate. Okay? Everyone can't participate in the games of the zero sum game system. When you got more stuff to play with, so to speak, you can lose it, because that's part of the game. The part of the potentials of the zero sum game is that you can come up with zero, so to speak, where you might have had a lot. And so it's an exchange of value where it's the winner versus loser. So it's not simply in money, it's in competition, it's in sports. I mean, all these people, you get 70,000 people come to a game, and they're all set up on each side, okay, us versus them, and they sit back and watch their team go through whatever the motions are of that game. They got the referees up, and see, common sense and honesty and stuff are not a factor. And so when someone is trying to get from point A to point B, to score a goal, for example, someone's trying to run them down and stop them. Okay, someone's trying to block them. Someone is trying to intercept it. And then one side is cheering, the other try to, those are real emotions, and a lot of people actually identify themselves with those activities. So you got those kind of dynamics going on. I mean, I remember growing up in Chicago, and I used to rise and fall with the Chicago Bears, and mostly fall. Okay, and one of my release for leaving after I left Chicago in my 20s, I think it was like 1979 or something like that. I left Chicago. I left the Bears in Chicago. I think my son adopted them, and still diehard stuff like that. Excuse me, I was done. But ultimately, I was also done. I went to Los Angeles, and I simply have gotten to a place where I'm done with the game itself. because you're watching and seeing how cheering for and booing against and this, that, and the other, it helps to perpetuate a blindness to the overall thing that people are working against each other. And the other thing is that want to know where some of your value goes to? It goes to those players. When you look at it's not just the players, excuse me. It even goes to the owners, because who's paying the players? The owners. When you look at that one offensive lineman can be garnering a contract for 80 some odd $1 million for one team. One offensive lineman on one team can be getting contracts. Maybe it's a 5-year contract or whatever it is. But if someone's paying them, what, $17 million a year, if they're paying them $1 million per game to sit and block, now it sounds great for them. But where did the value come from? It came from you. You buy season tickets, you buy this, that. See, all of this is interconnected. And guess what? The person and people who have the money to pay just one of their X number of linemen, you got your defenses and you got your offensive, then you got your quarterbacks and all these other stuff. They're paying all these folks. They're all of these funds because they're getting all these other funds from different places too. They're getting it, and it still is all coming from you. They're getting the television revenues. They're getting from for broadcast rights and stuff like that. Who's paying for that? You are. All of these places is where your value is actually going. And we talk about thankfulness, not the matter that the teams care about winning and stuff like that. But someone does have to lose. Someone will lose in the zero-sum game. But all this information that's turned back on you and directed back towards you that basically keeps you not really caring, one, about yourself, nor about others. You see, this is the point. There are other games that can be played, but the games that we have standardized on and have been conceived really help perpetuate the psychology behind isolation and insulation and insufficiency and not even knowing it. Your self-esteem going down. Anyone who has taken a job where they had to really try to justify their price and stuff, or they had needs that they're trying to get out of this particular one and the other ones didn't want to offer it. Look at all the people who are thinking only about others people's money. They want to do something with other people's money. Why? Because they don't have a way to get it of their own, and on the other hand, and they don't care what they do to get it. They don't mind lying. They don't mind cheating or stealing. Okay? They don't mind trying to work people down. And you got people in other points of positions of trust, fiduciaries, who are essentially, they talk about the fox in the hen house. Oh my God. They're sitting back there able to do anything and everything. None of these funds are theirs. It's all yours. And they're sending it all over the damn place. Okay, starting this fire, starting this, that, bombing this, bombing that. How much money is being spent on things that actually need to be attended to? Infrastructure, repairing roads, regenerating our and reconstituting our soils for fertility and stuff like that. They're willing to do that if there is a payoff for someone. And typically the people who are going to be or wanting that payoff are invested in keeping things just the way they are. So I see that I've talked and I feel. Here's now 40 minutes. I'm watching it down here, and I haven't really gotten down to what else I'm doing this thing for. What am I doing this thing for? There is a way that you can build an income flow, a flow of income, and I've talked about it before. It's in the link is in the description. It's called Co-op Inc. That's what it is now. It's been around for about a year, but the developer has literally been evolving this over this past year. So what it was when I started, it works just the same way, but it works better, differently, in a better way. is more accessible is the main thing. For an amount of $20 minimum, that's the floor. Not 1,000, not 2,000, not 20,000. There's no there's actually no reason to put that much in because the system does not function based on particularly the money that you put in it. It functions based on the time and effort you put in simply inviting three people to do the same thing that you did. So you can put in 20, you can put in 48, or you can put in $308. Those are your options. One of three options. And if you only have the $20, you can put the $20 in, and your efforts can take you to a point where automatically the 48 starts to go, and you're active on another platform. And then when you have some more success, you go to the third. You can start with 20 and then go into the other two platforms because there are three potential platforms that pay you three amounts every 28 days once you satisfy the criteria. And the criteria is basically this: you join, you fund, you invite three people. That's step one. The second step, step two, that you're active when you join. The step two, and which everyone wants to get to, is to be qualified. What that basically means is that when the three people that you invite, who are now going to contribute to your, they are income centers. They're income and outflow centers. Everyone is an income and an outflow center. You are an income and an outflow center now in regular life. We all are income and outflow centers. And so that is something that you do. And then, however, when you have invited three who have become inflow and outflow centers, they are sending to you and five other people in the beginning. But when they invite three now, or when you invite three, they become inflow to you. You are outflow to three. You create three who are inflow to you. You become part of their outflow. The next part is that you help those, the three that you invited, the three income outflow centers that you invited, to succeed and finish and getting three of their friends, whomever, to also do the same thing. That's all anyone does. But when you have three people who are income and outflow centers connected to you, and then they have three income and outflow centers connected to each other, that's 9 more. So 3 plus 9, you've got 12 people now that are inflow centers into you, while you remain an outflow source to 6 others. The person that invited you plus 5 other people. Now, what happens is this: because everything is interconnected, everyone is interconnected, what you're passing on is the behavior. Everyone that is joins from one of those 3 levels, maybe one of those two, of those 3. $20, $48, or $308, and there's some additional fees. But they're going to pay this every 28 days. And so the key of this system basically is this: you invite people, you get started on it right away, and when you succeed at inviting 3, and you do it within a specific time frame, so everything is time sensitive. So you don't join and then just sit there. You join. In fact, you can start getting your 3 people together now, even though you haven't joined. But the basic thing is this: you join, you get your 3 together. It only takes, frankly, an hour or so. If we talk today, for the end of the day, within an hour's time, even from now, Well, I'm jabbering right now. So, but you know what I mean. It doesn't take that long to get started. It only takes a few minutes. You can be started before I get off, so to speak, because you can click the link that's down below, or well, on Facebook, you're probably not seeing it. On um, YouTube, I did put the link down there. But nonetheless, and I also see tomorrow I'll have the graphic up. There'll be a QR code that you can click on, and if you look at my some of my well on YouTube, I'm just starting to put this up, so you won't see the QR code at all. You can reach me on Facebook, and you can see some of the others of these OWM. I chose this word also because the word Om, the Onescious wealth movement. Om. That's a cool thing because this is a conscious uh, journey that we're going to make together, and it's something we can all do, which is really, really cool. So, my point that I was getting at is this: it doesn't take long. I talked about time sensitivity, and the point basically is that you need to give yourself an objective and a goal and a time frame so that, for example, in the next 7 days, you've got your three. And you want to have that established within the minds of each one that in 7 days, and it don't have to be seven. See, here's the thing. It can be 3 days. It can be one day. One day. O-N-E. All right? It can be just one day. If you know a lot of people, for one thing, or we can get together on one of these calls. I can, if I'm sitting here willing to talk to myself about this, I'm certainly more than eager and happy to talk to groups of people. You get a group of people, and let's just talk about it. I'm not here to sell you on uh, on co-op. If I'm looking to sell you on anything, is to sell you on yourself, on your own ability, first of all, not only to see this and to create this for yourself, but to let you know that that is the only way it happens for anything that you want to do. It's not simply about co-op or not, or anything of that sort. It's about anything that you want to do. We don't see our negativity. We are blind to it. And we're blind to how our being negative, our being fearful, our being judgmental, our being preferential. Now, I'll say this. It's a matter of what you're preferring and even why you're preferring certain things, because ultimately, I want for others what I want for myself. I want what is considered, I'll consider a good life. And the truth of the matter is, I have it. The cool thing, though, is that there is a paradigm, there's a way that we can bring, because we talk about materiality and the stuff, and we talk about it like it's a bad thing. And the people who have the stuff, it's like they're bad. They must be bad. They must have done something, to have all this stuff. And so what happens? We create the dichotomy within ourselves. We create the wall and the barrier. We isolate ourselves from just that thing because of our own attitude. Now, here is a platform that if you exercise, when you exercise the higher aspects, the inclusive aspects of yourself, you expand your worldview, you expand the love and the respect that you have for others. Because why? You're loving and respecting yourself. You're now valuing who you are. When you start doing that, you start opening up these vistas, and that's the energy that you start sending out. And it applies to everything, not just something called money. So if you apply these principles, when you apply these principles in co-op and put this small amount of monetary value in, because it's all crypto, you're taking $60, you're taking $20, $48, or $308 in dollar equivalent. You're putting it in crypto. You can actually deposit in Ethereum. You can deposit in USDTs, USDCs, etc. It is the co-op wallet has dual blockchain. It's a Ethereum and Solana wallet, and you can fund it on the Ethereum blockchain, but you can put Bitcoin in there. You can put Dogecoin in there. I mean, XRP. You can fund with any of those tokens, and you're active. Okay, and so that is how this works. All of the accruals, as soon as someone opens a wallet at your invitation, you receive. As soon as someone opens a wallet at their invitation, they receive and you receive. And needless to say, if it's within 6 generations of my inviting you, I receive too. And see, so this is a very well thought out and worked out system. And it's one that provides, because as more people do this, see, it's not based on how much you got in terms of the tangibles, it's how much of the intangibles you're willing and ready to exercise. And that's what's important. We need to exercise that for any benefit that we want to gain from our own experience. So the money that is generated, the monetary value or asset value that's generated from this cooperative system, is incidental and secondary. So this is not an investment type situation. It is not pertinent. It's a spiritual situation, but it is not pertinent. The investment stuff is not pertinent. It is not a zero-sum game type thing of winners and losers. If you elect to be negative, you lose anyway, okay? But you lose in life, not in. It's just simple fact that if you're going to be negative about co-op, it's better not to get in. Or if you need to simply get over your own fears, you do what I did. You stay active in it, and when time comes and passes, because I've made money and stuff like that, I've earned. But if I still haven't three who have three, I need three who are active. A minimum. It's not that it starts with having a minimum of three who have three. You can have 5 people who have three and have three, and tell you the income that it just blows your mind. And what I want to say now, because I'm not talking about how much you can make, it's not important. Because if you don't do those other things, it's not going to matter. And yet, it's so easy to say, well, that system doesn't work. Excuse me. If you think that system doesn't work, it's because you haven't worked. And you haven't acknowledged the absence of your own work, so to speak. Or play, as the case may be. Simply reaching out. This is what I'm doing. I'm simply reaching out. I will be here tomorrow because I'm going to talk about some other things. I mentioned yesterday, seeing that I'm talking for 53 minutes now, but I mentioned yesterday about, I talked about Tesla. And I'm not talking about the car. I'm talking about Nikola Tesla, and I'm talking particularly about transportation, and when I had my Talk for Food program, I mentioned Ralph Ring. Ralph Ring was a man who was a protege of Otis Carr. He was an engineer who worked with Otis Carr, and Otis Carr was a protege of Nikola Tesla. Otis Carr he worked at the hotel that Tesla lived in, I guess the latter part of his life. There's some fuzzy parts of it, but Carr would provide or go get the peanuts that Tesla wanted to feed his pigeons. And it's apparently when Carr would go up to see Mr. Tesla, Tesla would impart, you know, ideas to him. He would tell him about different things. So what happened? Over time, um, as he grew up, Carr put some of those principles into action. And what came from that? He produced a vehicle, and I think it was called the OTC 1 or OTCX1 or something like that. And it was a disc shaped vehicle. It about 20 some odd feet in diameter, and it was built upon a totally different principle. And that principle was one certainly of energetics. They took and they built it, and they actually tested it. They did a trip, and Ralph Ring was one of the three people who actually took the trip itself. And at the time that I met him and interviewed him, we conversed because I met him several times and visited with him. And beautiful spirit, beautiful guy. So I said I was going to look for my video with Otis Carr, and I have an hour-long conversation with him, but I found a little clip that I did. I'm looking at the length. The length is only a couple minutes or something like that, so I'm going to share that with you. And then from there, we'll close for now, and then soon I will. No, it's easier. Okay, we'll close, and then I will be putting that up somewhere. So let's go to this screen here, and I'll turn them on. There we go.
And he kept pushing my finger back and forth. And he said, "What do you see?" And I said, "Nothing. There's just energy. It's just a bunch of whirling molecules in there and stuff." And he said, "That's right. That's energy. That's all you are, is energy. Your perception of anything else is erroneous. It doesn't exist. You are an energy being." And that, I understood what he was saying on a different level, but it was new to me that a scientist would be telling me that I'm just energy. And he says, being energy, you can't be created or destroyed. You go on forever. So the idea that you're anything different is erroneous. And you have to look deeper to see who you are, what you are, and take it from there.
Yes, absolutely. So I don't have any opening music at the moment. I have no closing music at this moment, but I've talked certainly enough. And it's there. It's now part of the public record. I will start and set up now where I can also multi-stream on Rumble, because I do have a channel there. But I'm going to do that, and we're going to talk more about the nature of who we are. I will also say that I've begun jibber jabbering on TikTok, and I'm saying my stuff. I'm not going to be someone else. I learned also a couple days ago something about Spain, the Spain measurements or something like that. We're going to talk more about that because it talks about where your real power is. And I'm going to run another video, not today, but I'm going to run a video tomorrow with this guy talking about it specifically, and it relates directly to the map of consciousness that I created too. And all of this was spanned by me really caring about consciousness and Line's research on Tesla's invention. No, I have not heard of Line's research, but I've heard of Line himself. I've read of, isn't that the ether guy? I've read some books by him, book by him, and that's a conversation to continue to have. There are so many things that we do not know that we ought to know, and is way past time. I'm also coming up, going to start share some of my insights, as well as some videos I did just a few weeks ago at the Sasquatch Summit in Ocean Shores, Washington. It was in November, and I have a couple stories, but I also met and talked to some of the speakers who some are authors of books. But the way this whole subject of UFOs and UAPs, and which is masked for the extraterrestrial conversation, people are not prepared properly enough for the extraterrestrial introduction because they don't have enough ability to discern what is true and what is not, and who is true and who is not. We have been too willing to listen to people who simply told us this, and this is all we should be hearing and thinking about, versus having a feeling of our own and trusting and using and relying on it. Because if you ignore those inner feelings, if you ignore that inner guidance, you are also ignoring the controls and the switches that power your life, your life. And if you leave certain switches off, you're going to pay the price. And it's not going to be a pleasant one. But don't blame the person that told you if you are not your own gatekeeper. The object here, the objective here, is to help people to see things that are valuable for themselves and then act on them. I'm introducing something here relative to this cooperative system that is totally and will be valuable for yourself, and it's not primarily from the co-op system. It is primarily from your change in attitude and your willingness to have an unfamiliar and to explore the unfamiliar. Most people are not willing to explore the unfamiliar. He did some interviews on YouTube and wrote a few books. Okay, well, I will certainly begin checking that out. Like I said, William Lyons, I know I've read one or more books about him because I think he also talked about or wrote about etheric uh, life forms. I believe if I'm talking or thinking about the same right that guy, he could see, he had a way of seeing these etheric. They weren't visible normally, but they were. He had a method of seeing them, and some of these were huge. And in addition to this, I think that those life forms, like amoeba or single celled, but they're like the size of a dirigible, of a blimp or something. These things were huge. But I think if you know much about Wilhelm Reich's work and the cloudbusters that he developed, I think these life forms were sensitive to the direction of the forces that were used with the cloudbusters. And those cloudbusters were also developed essentially to restore the motion in the atmosphere, which because the motion of the winds had slowed down and come to a halt. This is where people were experiencing droughts and stuff like that. And with the simple reinvigoration of that motion, that natural motion, just nudging and getting it going again, rain came and other things came. And if you look up Wilhelm Reich, you can see there too. He wasn't treated that well. But that's the past. There's certain things that need to be done now, and quite frankly, there's certain knowledge that people need to begin to embrace. It's decentralized knowledge is where the power is. And if you have decentralized knowledge, meaning it's centered within yourself, okay? It's centered within you. No one can take that away from you. You take it with you from physicality to physicality. Even while you have just one life, it's always with you. The knowledge that you don't have is no longer there. I mean, it's not there until it is. Let's see. Occult. Yep. I read that. Occult ether physics. Yep, with Cloudbuster, etc. Boom, boom, boom. We're talking about the same thing. So this is where we're going to go. Uh, and, I'll just talk about whatever comes through. I want to invite everyone to love themselves, and it's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a super thing to be your authentic self. That means to say what you feel, whether someone likes it or not. That will take some courage, and it'll also take practice. I'm doing things right now. I'm sitting here now. I mean, some of you know that I have done this. Not that I haven't done any live streams before, no matter how interesting or not interesting they were. I mean, I've not done it that well in my judgment. But the fact of the matter is, I do have a point of view that is, I'm just going to say, is overdue for the masses because I didn't come in knowing this stuff. I cared enough to start looking and seeking, and I learned quite a bit. So let's figure out. Not I figure it out. Let's just do something super together. So I'll be back tomorrow, same time. That's one thing. And then this this series runs through the 22nd. That's Friday of next week. At which point in time I will have established, I think, the habit well enough and the desire, and perhaps the connection with everyone. Thank you that you're and you that we will do this regularly. I do plan on for your awareness. Thank you, Kevin. I did put, if you didn't know it, all three of my conversations with Paul Pantone on Rumble. All the I can't think of Indelible Promise. All of a sudden I had to see it in my mind, the title. Disc 1, 2, and 3 are on Rumble, just so you know. Anyway, you guys take care, and I will talk to you next time. Till then, tomorrow, peace, be well. Let's be prosperous together, okay? Click on that thing below and join co-op, and let's get started with that too. And I love you all.